Hello and welcome back to Overbooked. I'm Amanda and today we're going to be doing my November wrap-up. I know this makes me sound really old, but I cannot believe how fast November went. Like I feel like November just started and now we're here in December and I'm like, where'd the time go? I can't keep up. My boomer self just can't keep up. And now we're at the end of the year. I also feel like in December, I just try to cram in all of my year goals into 1 month and it's just a hot mess. It's a lot of stress, a hot mess. This is me saying I can't wait till January, where it's just chill. There's still plenty, 12 months to achieve all my goals. There's no plans, there's no holidays. Is there any holidays in January? Is there? No. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is in February. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, let's get into the books. So I actually had a pretty decent reading month in November, and I've kind of caught up on my Goodreads goal. I'm still 4 books behind last time I checked. That's neither here nor there. But I've read some pretty decent books. So let's talk about them. The first book that I finished in November was the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I loved this book. So my friend Brenda recommended this book to me. I was just so glad that she did. I've seen this book around and I've seen people talk about it. So I kind of knew the gist, that there was some people who had liked it, there were some people who had about it. I really wanted to check it out so I could read it during Halloween. But if you guys don't know, I recently just got married over Halloween weekend, so that didn't happen. But I got to it in November and it was still good. I would definitely recommend this as a Halloween read though, if you're looking for one next year. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires is about like these white Southern women in a very small town, it appears, who start this book club where all they read is like true crime or crime mystery books, and then they just talk about them and they're obsessed with them. And then suddenly they have this like very mysterious neighbor who moves in, and then they realize that there is some children missing. Well, the main character, she finds out that there's children missing from like a nearby community that's all Black people. And so it doesn't get any attention. Nobody knows what's going on over there. But she knows this new neighbor and she thinks that there's some kind of coincidence happening and that he might not be who he says he is. So this book is with this like main character trying to figure out how she can take this neighbor down, she can solve this mystery, and then everyone around her telling her that she's crazy and that she should just let it go and yada, yada, yada. This book was insane from the get-go. I could not handle how crazy and stupid some of these characters are. I hated every single male character in this book. They treat all the females like they're dumb and know nothing, which is the point, but it's just so infuriating to read. It's definitely a page turner. I audibly gasped out loud at one point. There was one morning I got up to read, so I'm a pretty early riser and Chandler sleeps in, and I was sitting out here reading and I kept yelling and gasping out loud, and Chandler was like, "What is wrong? Are you okay?" So I had to go and be like, okay, listen, this is what's happening in this book right now. It was so good. I finished it in 2 days. I highly recommend. The next book I finished was Running by Natalia Sylvester. I read this for the Reading Women Challenge. I think it was, I don't even remember what the prompt was. Just as a heads up, as we're nearing towards the end of the year and I'm nowhere close to meeting the Reading Women's goal or prompt list, I'm giving up. But I am so glad that I read this book because I think it offered a unique perspective. I didn't super enjoy it. It is YA, which was the prompt calling. I think it was asking you to read a YA novel, but it definitely reads off as a YA. So our protagonist is like a 15-year-old girl. She sounds like a 15-year-old girl, which is definitely the point. So that's just like, for me, I was just like, okay, I'm annoyed. I don't like some of the things that she got upset about, which is very, okay. She's 15. She's okay to be upset about it. I was upset for more minor things when I was 15, but it was still kind of an eye roll. But if you like YA, I definitely recommend. It read fairly easily, and it just, like I said, offered really unique perspectives. So our main character is the daughter of a Latino who is running for president, and it appears to be a Republican candidate. And she has to navigate being in the spotlight and handling that pressure to be perfect and always ready to talk and present herself, but then also coming to terms with like that she might not agree with all of her dad's policies and opinions, and realizing that she has a say in some of this stuff. So you see her like character arc where she like kind of like maps out like a little section and voice for herself, which is really satisfying to read. That's one of my favorite things about this book, was just watching our main character develop throughout the book and grow into herself. And I just thought that was really, really cool. Something that I always thought, I was constantly thinking about while I read it, was I kept thinking about Barack Obama's daughters. And because I've read both Michelle and Obama's, is it autobiographies or biography? I can't remember, but whatever. I read both their books, and I think it's just so interesting to think of like how their daughters felt going through that whole process. I'm sure that they loved their dad, they believed in him, but also like there's this thing of like, okay, I just want a normal life. Like, I don't understand why like we have to be this family who does this. So it'd be really kind of interesting to see their perspective, but also like I'm not going to go knocking down, because after reading this book, it seems like that's very intrusive. It was definitely a really, really interesting read. Good, easy. I listened to it on Audible, or on audio. I don't have Audible, but so that was good. It was good. It was like a very heartwarming, tender kind of book. So I recommend. Next book I read was Undercover Bromance by Lisa K. Adams. So I've read the Bromance Book Club, and then I've just like been in a really big like romance kick lately. So I wanted to pick up like this series again because I really enjoyed it. In this book, we follow Mac, I believe his name is, and he's like one of the only like single dudes in the book club. Then we also follow, from the Bromance Book Club, like the main character's wife's sister is like the love interest in this book. So we follow those two perspectives. The sister is, well, our main character now, our love interest. I can't remember her name. She is like an aspiring chef and cook, but gets fired after she realizes that her boss is doing like sexual harassment stuff and is like essentially keeping everybody quiet, and no one knows about it except like the people who are affected. And so the whole book is her taking on this initiative to take down her boss and make him pay for what he's doing. Mac is like involved in this and helping her because he's the one who was like had a hand in like helping like getting her fired, because he goes to a restaurant and he orders this like very expensive cupcake and then accidentally like knocks it down, which her boss blames her for. Anyways, that's how they're connected. It's a very, very weird, meet cute book. Is like them trying to take down this boss and then them slowly realizing that they like each other, yada, yada, yada. I don't really know how much I loved the concept of the sexual harassment in this book. I'm not saying that I don't think that it should be like spoken out about or whatnot, but I just feel like in a romance book, I don't know what they can get. And this might be controversial. I don't know. I was trying to go over it through my head when I was reading it. Like, I don't know if it can be taken as seriously as it should be. So to me, it was almost like, you know, they were talking about, you know, her friend being sexually assaulted, or how she watched her fellow coworker go through this, and then, you know, change scene. Oh my gosh, Mac is so cute. I like him a lot. And it was just kind of like, okay, I don't know. It just didn't seem to fit the narrative. I don't know. But it also is like, okay, well, maybe it should just be normal. Like, you should just normalize talking about it so more people feel comfortable about coming forward. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. But that was something that threw me off. I did not like this one as much as I liked the first romance book, but I think I'm gonna take a break. I do kind of want to eventually finish the series, but not now. Not now. But if you are looking for an easy romance read, I would recommend the Bromance Book Club if you have not read it yet. The fourth book I read was The Color of Law, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregates America by Richard Rothstein. And this is actually one of the books that my library picked out for me. So I filled out a form at my library's website and like entered in all these things about what I like to read and what I'm looking for. And they gave me this book and like the next book I'm going to talk about, or another book I'm going to talk about. So that was interesting. And then it's actually been on my want to read on Goodreads. So that was perfect. So The Color of Law, it just literally is like, it's all in the title. Like, it's talking about how our government has essentially segregated America through just laws and ordinances and just so much bureaucracy that it's like almost impossible to like just backtrack. And then if you do somehow get through the red tape and change a policy or something, it's like shaping the public perception and opinion is also just 10 times harder to get that movement slowly going to desegregate something. And so that was just like, just crazy to know like how much just like walls like Black Americans have to face because there's just so much dumb shit in place that just they can't work around, or, you know, any person of color. And it was just stupid. It's also something that I just want to keep in mind. And I think there's another book that I want to read that talks about it. I think it's like eviction or something. So Chandler and I are gonna be looking for a house soon. And it was just something that I just was like, this is something I just won't have to consider when we're looking for a home. But it's something that I just want to be aware of, like that other people are going through, and like that I should be cognizant of while I'm going through my home buying purchase. And it was just astounding to me, like how much just shit there is. And like, it's just dumb. It's all dumb. And it's stupid. There's really nothing else to say about it. It's just stupid. I really think that if you're looking to see how like just true facts on how like America's segregated, I would definitely look at this book and look it up. And I definitely highly recommend if you're looking at, you know, either looking for an apartment, looking for a home. I think it really puts a lot of things in perspective and just really shows you how much privilege you have. Next book I read was Passing by Nella Larson. So this is a Netflix book club pick, which I've been trying to keep up with. Last time I checked, they hadn't come out with their December book pick, which I'm kind of disappointed by, but I need to check in again. I also ended up picking this, or this was ended up picked for this book club that I'm trying to run. So just very, did not try to set it up that way, but it worked out in my favor. Passing is about these two women who both can essentially pass for white, and one does. She essentially just passes over and becomes a white person, like blends into white society, marries a white husband who is very racist, has a daughter who thinks she is completely white, and then her friend who they run into can pass, but I don't think as easily, and chooses not to. Just she only chooses to pass when it's convenient or when she needs, like it's a necessity essentially. And she has a non-passing husband and children, so it would be difficult for her to like, you know, do that all the time. But they meet up, they're old friends, and this starts this like friendship of theirs that's very complicated and interesting to like think about. There's a lot of innuendos, there's a lot of passing reference throughout the book that you kind of have to search for. It's just so interesting what the author likes to point out. So this takes place in the 1920s in Harlem, and there's just so much activity. And then the white passing friend wants to not like completely come back into her identity, but she wants to hang out with her friend and be back around like people that she knows and grew up around. And so it's like a constant struggle really for our main character, who is like trying to grapple like with this reemergence of her friend and having her around in her circles and how that's affecting her in a lot of different ways. So it was very, very good. I read this in one sitting. It's a very short book, I will say. It's like under 200 pages. It was very, very good. Very good. And then I watched the Netflix movie afterwards, and which I also thought was very well done, and also like very, very close to the book. It's almost like they used the book as a script, which you should, like, which you think would be common sense, but it's like, I haven't seen a movie that close to the book, probably, you know, I don't even know when. So that was really cool to see. And it's all done in black and white, which I really liked. The next book I read was Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. And I freaking love this book. I wish I could this is a book I think I would reread or re-listen to. It was so good. So Nothing to See Here was the other book that my library picked out for me that I'd seen around. I just never picked it up because I didn't like the cover. I thought the cover looked dumb, which is just something you shouldn't do, right? You shouldn't judge a book by its cover, yada, yada, yada. But I did, and I regret it because this book was so funny. So this book is about these two friends who go to school, and that starts like a lifelong friendship, and they like are pen pals essentially. And one day, one of the friends writes to the other and asks her to come help her with her stepchildren. And it is later found out and discovered that these children catch on fire. They just combust into fire. I don't even know how to say it. Like they just burst into flames when they're upset or agitated or stressed. and nobody knows what's going on with them. So essentially this friend comes to take care of these children who are just fire bombs, essentially. And it is just the funniest thing I have read, and so also heartwarming, and just something that you need during a time where like COVID is on the rise again and there's just so much shit in the news every day. It was just really nice to read and to laugh and smile and just have like a aw like moment while I'm reading this book. So I definitely recommend this one if you have not checked it out. Next book I read was Next Year in Havana by Chanel Clayton, and this is like a dual timeline book, so it's historical fiction. And so we have one of our characters is in the present and the other one that is in the past, and she is in like 1950s, I think early 50s, late 40s in Cuba, leading up to like its takeover by Fidel Castro. And then the other one is the granddaughter of that character who is going back to Cuba after it like opens up its borders again. She's going there to spread her grandmother's ashes after she dies, because that's what her grandmother requested. And she was like, I want you to take me back to Cuba and I want you to pick where you spread my ashes. So she goes back to Cuba for a week and she wants to, explore and find the perfect place to, lay her grandmother to rest. And then we also get like the perspective of the grandmother, where she's like in Cuba while everything is happening. Everything's like the revolution is happening, yada, yada, yada. And then both granddaughter and grandmother have love interests in this book. We follow both of them like pursuing their love interest, having this like relationship, and then also just like discovering a lot of like the political turmoil in Cuba for both of them in present day and in the past. I thought this book was interesting. I liked it for the most part. I definitely liked the insight into Cuba. I don't know much about Cuba and I don't know much about its history. But I don't know how well it was just, I felt like it was like, how do I explain it? I don't know. I just didn't super enjoy the book, and I felt like we were either super absorbed in some love story or we were super absorbed in the political turmoil. And I don't know if they mashed well or if they didn't like flow like well in together. I don't know. It just felt rocky. And I also just it felt bland also. Like it was like there was a lot of stuff happening. It was obviously a very important time, but I felt like there wasn't I don't know how to explain it. It was just, I don't know, bland to me, which it shouldn't have been. I don't know. This is just like one of those times where, you're like, I just didn't like it and I don't know why. And that was one of these. But I definitely want to read more about Cuba or like find some documentary about it, to really learn more about it, because it's just something that I feel like as Americans, we probably should know about, because I feel like we definitely had a huge part in a lot of the shit that's going on there. So if you have any recommendations for that, please let me know in the comments below. So the last book I finished was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. And this has been like all over BookTube and Bookstagram, I feel like, for the past year. I don't know why. I don't know when this book came out. Maybe it was this year. I don't know. So this book takes place in, what is it even called? I can't even think of the word. Ancient Greece times? I don't really know. So we follow our main character, Achilles, and then he has a companion that I forgot his name, but they essentially fall in love, which is an issue because they're two boys, which I didn't know. I thought that it might have been more accepted back in like ancient Greece, but maybe not. I don't know. And I thought the gods, because there's a tie-in with the gods, because like Achilles has a mother who's a god and she's gonna approve. I thought that they would be more like whatever about it, but I guess not. I don't know. So the book follows like them as young boys and then eventually falling in love, and then Achilles like living throughout his prophecy, which is to be the best warrior ever, and then eventually learning the other half of that prophecy, which I won't say because I don't know if like a lot of people know that. I don't know the backstory of Achilles or anybody in this book, so it was a shocker for me. I liked this book. I also read Circe by Madeline Miller, and I can't really decide which one I liked better. I thought this was beautifully written. There's no doubt about that. This was like, it was like almost lyrical. That's how good it was. But it's also just like not something that's like my cup of tea. Like I really, really enjoyed it. I loved like the writing and listening to it. I think I enjoyed it more. Like I usually listen to my audiobooks like when I'm working out or walking or doing chores. I definitely like this when I was doing like more relaxing activities. But I listened to this more when I was running, and it was not the book for that. So I think that, I'm not gonna lie, I think that played a factor in me not enjoying as much as I could have or should have. But I still enjoyed it for the most part. I still felt like the same about this as I did like Circe, where it was just kind of like there was just something that I was like, nah, it's just not something that I would like If I'd never picked it up, I don't think I'd be upset, if that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'm sure there's gonna be somebody who's super opposed to what I'm saying, but I don't know. What can you do? Those were all the books that I read in November. In the comments below, please let me know what you read in November, what your favorite book was in November, if you've read any of the books that I've talked about today, if any of them sound interesting to you and you think you're gonna pick them up, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you have not already. And I will see you guys next time.